Pay attention to this image because it's the last one, maybe the only one, of Flo and Rick together. Well, together. There were a lot of people in between, okay? But I think they had never been so close, right? Or maybe they have, I think Rick explained it recently. Rick is Riquelme, Flo is Florentino. I don't need to explain it, but anyway. He said that they talked recently, they were talking and all that, but they're not going to get together much. But of course, today the women's team was playing and Riquelme was told, because Florentino was here, hey, always in a suit and tie. I just don't remember seeing Florentino casually. I don't remember him without a suit and tie. There's always that unflappable guy, even with the heat in Madrid, there in Valdebebas. It couldn't have been easy. Everyone there with hand fans. And, well, he was in the VIP box. It's true, in the shade. Because Enrique Riquelme had to be a bit lower down, out in the sun. But of course, I mean, if it's over 30 degrees out there, being in the sun for a couple of hours must be terrible. Watching the women's team, which with all due respect was probably at the bottom of both of their priority lists, right? You tell me. Because during election campaigns, sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do. And well, Enrique Riquelme, of course, the other day they told him, you didn't go to see Castilla, you were watching the bullfights, you got criticized for that. Today he went to the women's team, which has been one of the ways he's tried to get in. We've been saying all these days that Enrique Riquelme is looking for the issues the members bring up to him, going all out on what he calls privatization. And now we're going to talk about all that. Why can Florentino be attacked? There are very few weak spots, but that's one of them. And the women's team is one of those. Because it's true that in the last 2 years in men's football, things haven't gone very well for us. But Florentino can come back at you, and Florentino, the Florentino supporters, and even anyone with a bit of common sense will say, yeah, but, well, the recent past has been glorious, right? That doesn't mean you can't criticize what's been done over these last 2 years, but anyway. But you know that in the women's team, it's true that they've built a team to be at the top of the standings in Spain, right? But since you have Barca, who have been dominating for a while now, every time you play against them, they thrash you and all that. Well, that's just how it is. It's a way for people to get in and criticize. And that's why today he's at the women's match. I don't know how often Florentino attends women's matches, but of course he had to be there this time, right? Bueno, well, Florentino and El País, Flo, let's go with this interview. Because it's given us a lot to talk about. The way to know what Madrid is worth is to sell a small part. Then Riquelme came out and said, look, now he's shown his true colors and so on, and now we'll listen to him. But also because there have been references to Riquelme, and just like the first day, who is this guy coming here? He's not a serious candidate. He's not trustworthy. He's one of Calderon's people, and so on and so on. Florentino kept going with that. Very fair, of course, because the other one also keeps going on about privatization and so on. And here everyone is going to defend their own campaign pillars, right? Those are strong words, and they'll get even stronger as the campaign goes on. And I think today we've gotten into mudslinging. Well, let's talk about some of the things Florentino said in El País, because they are very interesting. Let's start with what Enrique Riquelme calls privatization. That Florentino says he's only selling a tiny part. They ask him, why do you need to sell a part to someone in order to give the assets to the members? And he says it's not necessary. But who says the club is worth 10 billion? He says, but who says the club is worth 10 billion? Forbes? That's not a valuation. Well, that's not a valuation. Let's see. Here, things are often used so that Florentino has said 1,000 times that Forbes considers Madrid the most valuable team. He even gives it a figure. And Florentino, when he has to brag about it, quotes Forbes and doesn't say it's not a valuation. I'm not sure you understand me. Everyone here only cares about themselves. And in their narratives, well, sometimes some things work for them and sometimes they don't. I understand what he means here because it's true. Because what Florentino says here is true. This isn't a reliable valuation in the sense that, well, just because Forbes says it's worth 10 billion, if we sell 5%, then 5% is worth that much, right? So he explains it well. He says the valuation is when someone buys a small part, like 5%, just to set the value. And they ask him, what does the person who buys the 5% get in return? He says, nothing. These are figures based on such an extraordinary valuation that no one can think they're coming after Real Madrid. which is the opposite of what this candidacy is doing. And he never says Riquelme's name. I mean, sometimes to belittle someone, you don't even say their name. He says that's the opposite of what this candidacy wants to do. The idea of calling the elections was already on my mind because I wanted to retire with the assets transferred to the owners, to the members. He says nothing is cleaner. That's how Florentino explains it. Afterwards, someone could come and want to buy 10%, he says, whatever the members want, and always by referendum. But that 5% won't be in charge. Let's say it could be more about image to partner with a brand like Madrid. But it will be the other 95% of the members who will keep running things. I won't die until I achieve it, until I make the club's economic assets belong to its members. It won't belong to some random guy off the street who doesn't have money and is willing to take out a usurious loan to take over Madrid. Here, again, I mentioned Riquelme without saying his name. There's a little point here and the Florentino supporter has probably already left this channel. They probably didn't even make it to this video. But there's a bit of Florentino here that some might see as arrogance. From the start, referencing the other candidacy without mentioning names, there's not just a point, there's arrogance here. Is Florentino in a position to be arrogant? Well, yes. But arrogance isn't nice either. But anyway, he says the other candidacy is a union of interests of those who sneaked into the assemblies without being members and voted. Here he brings up the Calderon thing again. And he says again that they're the Calderon people. Calderon, that's 17 years ago. But anyway, one thing. Earlier, someone, a follower, sent me the article. I don't have it with me right now. But it's true that there was a correction from the guy, the Bloomberg writer. About the 54% credit thing, yes, there was a correction. The other day in the video, I said I hadn't found it. Well, there was one. Therefore, continuing with that, it won't be from some Real Madrid guy or just some random guy. It won't be from someone without money willing to take a usurious loan to take over Madrid. This is a really strong attack, man. This is a harsh attack, especially since you keep bringing up something they've already fixed. And then because, damn, I've been telling you this since day one. Here's how I see it. This is Florentino, of course, but there are many people here, especially journalists, who doesn't get criticized with claims like you're paid by this guy, in this case, Florentino, who are running a campaign to make Riquelme look like a nobody, like a loser. Maybe he doesn't deserve to be Real Madrid's president right now. It's impossible to beat Florentino. It's true that I also have a lot of doubts about Riquelme's candidacy. Let me say this as an aside. It's very unlikely that I'll vote because also on Saturday, I'm leaving for the World Cup in the United States. I'm traveling on Saturday. The voting is on Sunday. I'm not going to do it by mail. I really doubt I'll vote. So look, they won't have my vote, unfortunately. I wanted to vote, but unfortunately. But anyway, but I've been telling you this from the beginning. There's a guy who's dared to run and actually has the money, since presenting the guarantee isn't easy. Florentino's camp has been pushing the idea that he did it secretly or through the back door. I'm not sure about the rest. It's about discrediting your rival. This has been around since day one of politics and of life. But let's think. Look, let's think about the following. Madrid, we can't afford the luxury of having only one man in the world who can be president of Real Madrid. Someone showing up with money, running, and offering an alternative is already a reason, even if you're not convinced. And there should be dialogue. It's a shame there's no debate. One asks for it, the other refuses. It's already a reason for the democratic health of a club that still belongs to its members. I think so. I mean, those who are ridiculing Riquelme, I think they're exaggerating. Every caricature is an exaggeration. Because there will be people who want to caricature Florentino too. Because Florentino, well, with his way of speaking, with his things and all that, you could also do it with his press conferences. But no, caricaturing is unfair. Criticizing is something else. You can say, hey, look, I don't like Riquelme. Well, like I sometimes hear Kiro, like I hear someone else. Hey, I find what he's proposing interesting. But how do you pay for that? I don't like certain things. It's suspicious that he doesn't go after Tebas. All of that, yes. But not to fall into caricaturing, right? Or exaggeration. And I think that's what's happening. That's what people are falling into. That does the club a disservice in the years ahead, since there will come a time when Florentino can't run. And this guy will have already run, Riquelme. And damn, And then he could be seen as an alternative. Maybe not for now, but not for now, sorry. In the future, yes. And there's a game being played here to defend a certain trait, candidacy. An ugly game of saying the other one is just legs. I don't like it, but oh well. I'm getting confused. They ask when he would hold the ownership referendum if he wins. He replies, right after the election, he'll call an assembly of delegates and hold the referendum. What's going on here? That's why the elections are being held. This is the reason for the elections. And the club, I don't know if it's stuck or not, and they're working on Nico Paz and on Victor Munoz, and of course on Mourinho, and they're working on Enzo if they want Enzo. But in theory, during elections, you get stuck. I hope it's being done. But the elections are because of this. Guys, it's because results haven't gone well. Florentino held a regular assembly in November and said the extraordinary one would be in December, with the referendum later. But he didn't do it or explain why. It's because results were going terribly, which has a big impact. Florentino's approach is to say, as for the sporting side, we'll see what happens and sign Mourinho, who most people want. And I do this when I've strengthened my position through an election. I did it for that reason. And because I had a bit of a suspicion that they want to take his place, that there might be a movement inside the club, a vote of no confidence, etc., and so on. And that's why he did this. Nothing more, nothing less, guys. Nothing more, nothing less. He said more things. He said more things like, let's see, just a moment. He says that about the Negreira case. He says Real Madrid will deliver a dossier to UEFA about the Negreira case. What punishment do you think would be fair for Barcelona? He says when a UEFA investigator reviews the documentation, I don't know what sanction they could impose. I've never seen anything this serious in football history, systematic corruption. The football world expects the sporting authorities to take firm action in the Negreira case, given payments to the referee's vice president. And that even today, the same referees are still officiating. I absolutely agree. But we go back to the same thing. I don't want to be annoying. I could have said this from day one. Wait a few months. Once the civil guards report is out, okay. But it's really obvious when this is said, when he says it. It's good that he says it when we're no longer friends with Laporta. But I'm repeating myself. But anyway, here I am, absolutely with my president and absolutely with my club. And also, seeing Florentino with Seferin and all that, I like it. I really like it. Because I actually think UEFA could sanction Barca. We've already said this, not just because of Madrid, but also due to Juan Luis Martín de Pozuelo's complaint and those with him, which was actually sent before Madrid's complaint. Because the famous dossier will still arrive next week. We sent it to UEFA, and FIFA already has it too, by the way. Well, let's continue. Here he's referring to, well, something else, about the issue of selling a small part. Some people wonder if each member receiving 100,000 euros has any tax implications, right, for the member. I had something important about that here. Yes, that, yes. Someone who was asking a question, yes. Yes. Yes, something important in that sense. Someone was asking a question, and it's the following. I found it. Wow. Yes. They say that, for example, they don't know how it will be done. Of course, yesterday, Paco Gonzalez was saying on the Cope network that they are working on it. The issue is how the member gets those approximately 100,000, and then how that member, if they want to sell them, can sell them to someone else. So it has also been delayed because of that, since they still haven't found the solution, although, well, in theory, they will figure it out. But there are also people who say that the most likely option is that the tax authorities will consider it a capital gain and you'll have to pay 22,000 bucks. The club says it will try to have it considered as pre-existing rights, so you don't have to pay until you sell it. But I don't know if the tax authorities will go along with that. The only thing left would be for them to tell you, all right, as a Real Madrid member, you get 100,000 and you have to pay 22,000 now before you sell it and make the sale, right? And I mean, that would be unbelievable. I don't think so. I'm not sure how this works, but people are already discussing it. But that would be incredible. He also referred to Riquelme in the following terms, and that's why Riquelme has gone all out against him in these statements that we're going to show. He says about the issue of the member city, He says everything they say is just absurd populism. It's like if you have a plot of land worth $1 billion on La Castellana and you want to put some swings there, Florentino said. The only purpose of these people, is to seize power for their own benefit. Now, when I saw it, he talks about these people. I mean, he doesn't even say the candidate's name, man. He might be right, and Florentino's great at this, but that's exactly the arrogance I mentioned before. Anyway, let's continue. He says, now, when I saw the candidacy, I said, man, they're the same people from Calderon's time, the ones who had to resign, who had to step down in 2009. Years have passed, and they're still there. The other candidacy is a coalition of vested interests who once sneaked into assemblies to vote without being members. We've read that before, right? Florentino here going all out against Riquelme. And Riquelme answered a little while ago and said this quickly. I think as he was leaving the women's match, in a statement he gave to the media, and he talks about taking off the masks and all that. Well, let's listen to him. Our candidacy as...
Those matches won't be easy. We'll start with signings, but today is about saying goodbye to the three legends. Let's hear from him. Now let's go to Per, who is leaving, and listen to him. To the three legends, to Caroline, to Misa, and to Terry, who are leaving today. We will support. Hopefully this project can be strengthened much more. Another thing I wanted to address after everything that has happened today, as we saw yesterday after the Champions League final in Paris, is without a doubt to condemn violence in sports, in football. That part has to be completely out, and in our case, we will be extremely clear that we are not going to allow any kind of violence inside the stadium, nor outside or around anything related to football.
This, I imagine, refers to, to silence those voices that say the ultras are behind Riquelme and so on. Well.
And then to finish, what I want is to invite the media. I'd like to ask you, please, to be at our campaign headquarters today at 6 in the evening. Because everything we said was our red line in order to run, and it was what motivated us to run in this candidacy. We thought it wasn't going to happen. This morning, we read the interview with Florentino Perez in El País. Now directly with privatization. I think it's crucial that he was so upfront in the middle of a campaign. He clearly says he's going to privatize the club. And this afternoon we will call...
This afternoon at 6, he says he'll call the press to hear what he says. But anyway, he keeps talking about privatization and dropping the masks and so on. This afternoon at 6 in the evening at the campaign headquarters to give our full statement on the matter. The referendum isn't happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Or as candidate Perez said, the referendum, what I ask of the members, thank you no matter who they are. Thank you, Mr. President. The referendum, what I ask of my father-in-law is please be brave. It's a mess. You really should go vote. Madrid is going to be jammed on the 7th, but please, the referendum is on the 7th. It's coming. From what they've shown us, it's because of this privatization. We're totally against it. The club has to be 100% owned by its members. And clearly, today, this is a day when the masks are off. Today at 6 in the evening. But anyway.
We'll keep an eye on it later. Let's see here. It's just that, of course, a line has already been crossed and now there are insults. No, not ugly, not thugs, not knife wielders, but that line they were trying not to cross has already been crossed. Florentino, without mentioning him by name, and talking about these guys who come here who are insolvent, and they want Madrid for their own benefit. And this one says, well, if the other one is saying these things, I'm going to talk too. He's talked about privatization since day one, but now he's saying it even more strongly, right? To make the members believe that he's going to deceive them, that Florentino is going to deceive them, according to Riquelme, and that selling the 5% is a lie, because what he's really doing is already selling a part of Real Madrid. He's taking Madrid away from the members. Later, I'll talk in the next video about someone who has collaborated on Ramon Jorguisa's channel, who talks about what this would be and also sheds a lot of light on it. Well, just so people have as much information as possible, the more information, the better. I keep saying that as a member, it would be easy for me to say, I'll get 100,000 euros and sell that. Fantastic. I'd go anywhere with Florentino, but life doesn't work that way. They can promise anything, but you need to be critical of everything, right? They also need to explain things clearly, of course, right? And what Florentino wanted was that elections, I consolidate my position, I explain it in an ordinary assembly. The majority of the delegates always vote in favor of Florentino. I'm not implying anything by this, but he feels comfortable there. Extraordinary assembly, and then a referendum, of course. In the referendum, it's already more complicated there. It's more complicated for the member. I mean, the referendum is, well, a test, a real trial by fire for something so tough. And if you don't explain it well, and if the club isn't doing well in sports, you risk having it rejected. That's why Florentino wants to have everything on his side as much as possible. He says he'll win, then hold an assembly, then an extraordinary assembly, and a referendum, which will need to be explained as clearly and thoroughly as possible. All right, see you later. Hope everything goes well for you. And please hype up the video because it really helps the channel. Give it a like if you enjoyed it, and that's it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye.